Hi, my name is Stanislav Kostyuk, and this is Farlands, a series about video games and video game design. And today we'll talk about characterization through mechanics. In any artistic work, rarely do we use direct descriptions to tell something about a person's character. You don't have anybody say, "This person is very witty." You have the character say or do something witty. You don't say, "John was very shy." You have him linger and maybe feel somewhat insecure before talking to somebody. The way a person looks, dresses, how his living or workplaces look, all those things paint a picture in our mind of what the character is. In movies, this is called show, don't tell, but this sort of thing applies to any medium, really. Games use all the same tools to characterize people, creatures, things, or places, but there is one addition: the game mechanics. If you add a stealing mechanic, that alone can say a lot about a character. Of course, context matters as well. There's difference between stealing from a random person on the streets and, let's say, stealing from a soldier behind enemy lines. Similarly, Uncharted and The Last of Us both have a lot of shooting, but with Uncharted being a pulpy fun adventure, The Last of Us being a gritty post-apocalyptic tale, the act of killing doesn't say the same thing about the main characters.
You're a fucking animal.
It's awfully quick to judgment. Considering you and your friend killed how many men?
They didn't give us a choice.
And you think we have a choice? Is that it?
Mechanics and context is why people are weirded out when, for example, the Arkham series Batman with a strict no-killing rule can do things like blow up a huge wall onto a person. Yes, the detective mode says the enemy is unconscious, but logic dictates that when concrete falls on somebody's head, that's really not good. But I think the best case study for how mechanics can say a lot about a character is Thomas Was Alone. The game, for all intents and purposes, is about rectangles that jump, and yet it's got some of the most compelling characters one can find in video games. Let me show you some clips of the characters just jumping. Isn't it cool how even with no narration you can feel the distinct personalities of the characters who play as by their shape, jump height, and the jumping sound effect? And Danny Wallace's voiceover does wonders to add layers of characterization to these boxes. Well, technically they're AI constructs.
Thomas wondered whether the portals were actually taking him anywhere. He felt like he was making progress, but there wasn't really any way to know.
We have the curious Thomas, show-off John, James who was bullied because he's different, there's Clara who can't really jump but she's the only character in the game who can swim, so she creates a superhero persona for herself.
Fear not, my skinny friends, for I am Claire, and I will save you. Claire needed to come up with a superhero name as soon as possible. Claire was rubbish.
The cast is very colorful, both literally and metaphorically, and they all have character arcs that they go through. Interaction between mechanics plays a big role in this as well. For example, Chris is a grumpy little square who can't jump high and therefore is very jealous of Thomas. At one point he meets Laura. She's a trampoline mechanically. Other characters can bounce off her to greater heights. Laura is very insecure because she has met a lot of AIs who just use her to jump on her and then disappeared, but Chris falls in love with her. And not only does Laura help Chris with her special ability, Chris helps Laura as well, as her jump is even lower than his. And this teamwork and interaction helps both of them to get rid of their insecurities. As a note, working together is a big theme in Thomas Was Alone, and a catalyst for each of the characters' narrative transformation. So these two, Chris and Laura, start to complete each other both narratively and mechanically, creating a very sweet relationship, which is not something you expect to hear about rectangles, but there it is. And all this applies not just to games focused on specific characters. Take StarCraft for example, the base unit for each of the factions: Marine, Zealot, and Zergling. Let's just look at them like we'd look at squares. One is cheap, fast, spawns in twos, but pretty weak. Another one is effective at close combat, doesn't have a lot of health, but has regenerated armor. Then there's a pretty sturdy square that shoots things. Even if you don't know a lot about StarCraft, fast ship units that are created in pairs feels right for the insecty, swarmy Zergs, and feels out of place if you'd apply that to the Terran troops. All this doesn't mean that in games we need to limit mechanics to form specific experiences. There is nothing wrong with putting additional features to provide more choice to the player. It is important to understand, however, the relationship between player choice and creator's definition of character. Which is, if you put it very broadly, the more freedom you want to have, the less defined your character has to be. There is a lot of different varied actions one can do in Skyrim. However, it is the player who decides what type of person their character is. If you take The Witcher, there is a smaller amount of action verbs and systemic interactions than there is in Skyrim. But in Witcher we play as Geralt specifically. And even though players decide what kind of Geralt they are, they can't do something that's absolutely out of character. And if you take a title with no defined narrative like Sid Meier's Pirates, we still find that mechanics used revolve around the game's context and fantasy. Players carve their own path in Pirates and create a lot of different stories that are defined by their actions, but they can't just stay in settlement and expand it like they're playing a city builder or something. But the more you define somebody, the more important it is that the space of possibilities you create fits that character. When Watch Dogs 2 was released, there were a lot of articles spread all over the internet, discussing how shooting doesn't fit the game at all, as Marcus is such an optimistic and idealistic guy that there's no way he would kill. Even in a pulpy adventure should only clear-cut bad guys that want to kill you away like the anti-heroic Nathan Drake does. But then there's also a hacking ability in Watch Dogs 2 that allows you to frame somebody for a crime. People don't like it as well, because it makes Marcus a hypocrite, as his whole initial motivation was to remove the criminal records that were unfairly and arbitrarily assigned to him. And stuff like shooting was present in the first Watch Dogs as well, but the first game also has a protagonist with a very skewed perception of morality. Aiden self-justifies his actions a lot, and gets called out on that pretty often. At one point he even traumatizes his nephew who saw the kind of things Aiden was capable of.
Let me get you someplace safe. Come on, Jax. Come on.
Mechanics are more than just a tool that creates gameplay. They also define characters, push narrative, and are integral to providing context and cohesiveness to the experience. Which is why we need to define how big space of possibilities we want to have, depending on what kind of game we want to make, and always think about how each mechanic that we add affects the experience that we want to provide. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave any comments below. Do you have any examples of characterization through mechanics, good or bad, that you'd like to share? I would be glad to participate in a conversation regarding those. And if you'd like, consider supporting my work on Patreon. A special thank you goes to Paolo Di Stefano. Your support is very appreciated. Thank you very much.